In the name of my health and yours, Holmes, stop smoking so much. There is more fog in our apartment than in the street.
You are right, Watson, but this evening is never ending, and I have nothing to do but make smoke rings. A more amusing pastime would suit better, but my doctor is against it.
Perhaps a little tune on the violin.
My heart is not in it tonight, Watson. Have you noticed how this cigarette burns? Would you not say it is like a life being consumed? How many lives will end tonight in London? How many crimes will be committed within the life of a single cigarette? Ah, the vanity of existence. It is but complaints and smoke, the meagre panache of its sickly soul.
The tobacco is giving you very sombre thoughts. I am certain that this inactivity will not last. Let's retire. You'll be in better humour tomorrow.
Reason speaks. Let's to bed.
Come this way, my lovely. We'll have a right good time. Wait, let me help you. Oh, it's my hair that pleases you.
The news is as dark as the sky, Holmes. An inquest has been opened into the murder of a poor woman in the East End. The unfortunate girl was discovered last night, lying in the street, still warm. The murderer was filled with an incredible savagery. Oh, the article gave me shivers down my spine. The inspectors in charge of the case don't seem to have even the slightest lead. A similar murder took place less than a month ago.
Ah, love. A romantic walk, a kiss in the moonlight, a polite refusal, a terrible anger, and a hanging.
This area of Whitechapel is a disgrace to London. The government should take serious note of what is going on there.
Whitechapel? This woman was found in Whitechapel?
Yes, indeed. Bucks Row, to be specific.
Then it was not a question of romance, but of commerce. Unless these women actually take pleasure in the vice, the female nature is completely...
Holmes, do you hear yourself? A woman is dead under unspeakable circumstances. No less than any other, she was a human and one of Her Majesty's subjects. None of these streetwalkers of which you speak have any other way to survive but by selling their bodies. You know as well as I that our era is not a gentle one, and these women don't have much to look forward to. Some grace, if you would. Do not refuse them your compassion.
Do not say another word, my dear Watson. We shall leave immediately for Whitechapel.
To the scene of the crime?
No, I think it would be better to arrive there a bit later once night has fallen. At the moment, the spot will be overrun by police officers and spectators. It would be impossible to investigate properly.
Then where are we going, Holmes?
The best thing to do would be to head to the police station and attempt to get a copy of the preliminary reports.
But the article in the Star seemed quite complete to me.
You must know, Watson, that journalists often draw conclusions from the facts without a proper understanding of how to do this delicate task. We must obtain the reports from the inspector in charge, as well as those from the coroner.
Very well, Holmes, but all the same.
It seems to me that I have a map of London somewhere, Watson. Can you find it and locate Whitechapel while I get ready?
You are too kind, Holmes. Searching through your mess? Holmes's experiment table. The Queen's initials done in bullet holes. Good old Holmes. The Adventure of the Dancing Men. I remember it well. Holmes's violin. He doesn't play nearly enough, if you ask me. Treaty on Cornish, the Celtic dialect of Cornwall. And here, medieval pottery. How can Holmes possibly read such things? This is the coal bucket in which Holmes keeps his cigars. What a funny idea. Colonel Gordon, during the last adventure of the resident patient. This is how Holmes stores his post. Thank goodness his clients don't see this. Switzerland, a charming country. Perhaps Holmes and I shall investigate one day. This is the harpoon that pierced the sailor Peter the Black. Bizarre little relic. Well, well, Holmes has received some French champagne with a card, a gift from a young admirer, signed Raoul d'Andrecy. Who on earth could that be? Holmes uses this old Persian slipper to hold his pipe tobacco. A map of London, at last. Let's see. The district of Whitechapel. I found the map, Holmes. and I was able to locate the Whitechapel police station.
Congratulations, Watson. Come, the game is afoot. You can read the article to me on the way. We have arrived, Watson, in Whitechapel.
Not very bright, and what cold! Brr, a typical London morning.
Come, Watson, let's find this police station.
Well, this station isn't very well kept, I say.
It's a local outpost, Watson. The daily tasks that confront these constables are not the easiest, and they are poorly paid.
Gentlemen, welcome.
Hello, I would like to speak with the Chief Inspector, if you please.
Constable Humphreys here. I am the only one in at the moment. What do you want with the Chief?
My name is Sherlock Holmes. I am...
Sherlock Holmes? The detective that I read about in the papers? Well, that's a treat, that is. You come about the Buck Road case, have you?
Indeed, we...
Not at all. We were just passing by chance. You say that there was a crime recently.
You don't know? You must be the only folk in London who haven't heard.
It won't be long until you find the culprit, no doubt.
Nothing is less certain. Suspects, 0. Clues, 0. It's not good for us, especially not in this district.
Listen, this isn't what I came here for, but if I can be of service, in a confidential capacity, of course, if you can entrust me with a copy of the preliminary reports, I could study them and return later with my conclusions.
It's just that these are official documents. I can't take a decision like that without the inspectors.
The sooner we know the facts in the file, the sooner we can be of help, my friend.
Say, if you are Sherlock Holmes, you can find anything, isn't that true? With your magnifying glass, footprints?
My performance is often embellished by my biographer.
Ah, good. Good. I will give you the reports, but could you do me a small favour first? During my rounds, I dropped a leather folder containing some papers. Nothing of importance, but it's a big mistake. I would go looking for it myself, but I am stuck here on duty. I must have lost it near the seedy boarding house not far from here. Left when you leave the courtyard and left again in the lane. Perhaps you could go, ask around.
We shall see what we can do. Are we going to go look for these documents?
Why not? It'll give us an occasion to take a tour of the district, Watson. Good day, sir. You wouldn't happen to have seen a leather folder on the ground around here, would you?
Good day, gentlemen. Finley, caretaker of this building. Here to serve. And yes, less than an hour ago. But some of the local urchins picked it up and God only knows where it might be now.
That's unfortunate. This police bag contained documents that the local police will miss.
Your inspectors?
Not at all. I am Dr. Watson, and this is Sherlock Holmes, the detective.
Sherlock Holmes, the great detective. You must be here about last night's murder. Have you discovered the identity of the poor woman?
Indeed, I'd only to read the papers.
Mine is dated from this morning, and it does not say who it is.
I'm not really engaged in this case, but if I can help the police, I will do so willingly.
Oh, to be sure. I've been told that Inspector Aberline is in charge. A very capable man.
So, according to you, I have no chance of finding this folder then?
Indeed. But I, on the other hand, should be able to find it. Do me a favour in exchange. A vagrant comes almost every night to sleep in one of the nooks not far from my windows. He coughs, howls, sometimes even sings. He's quite hefty and I don't dare approach him. I've lost 3 tenants because of him. If it's you who speaks to the police, they will take this matter more seriously. Tell them about the captain. They'll know who you're talking about. In the meantime, I'll find your police bag.
Let's go to the police station.
So, gentlemen, have you found my police bag?
Not quite yet. Do you know a vagrant who goes by the name of the Captain?
Captain? Yes, an old sailor, strong as a Turk and tattooed from head to toe. The drink has turned him into a derelict.
He appears to be causing some problems for the caretaker of the building at the end of the street.
What do you want us to do? Every night, stairwells, halls and porches become public dormitories, and people don't only come to sleep. I believe this man has a niece who puts him up sometimes. Her lodgings are in Commercial Street, right after the alley with the boarding house. You won't forget my folder, will you?
Do you believe this woman will agree to have her uncle stay with her?
No idea. Oh well, let's go see her just the same. There. This is where the niece of the captain must live. Good day, miss. Would you happen to be the niece of the man known as the captain?
Oh, yes, that would be me. What has he done this time? He isn't... Oh my God, I'm on my way.
Miss, we have come to ask if you could have your uncle come live with you. He sleeps under the windows of a boarding house, causes the caretaker no end of problems.
I know. I've lodged him for a while, and he was the same here. My landlord made me kick him out. I'm ashamed, you know. I never should have, given the state of his health. He coughs day and night.
There might be a way to calm his cough. I am a doctor. I could examine him.
He went to see a doctor at the clinic. But the medicine costs too much. I can hardly pay my rent.
We will see to it. Where might your uncle be found?
I don't know. He must be in the vicinity, but I don't know exactly where.
We will find him.
Holmes, this is serious. Find an alcoholic in Whitechapel A needle in a haystack would be easier.
Come, dear doctor, let's trust to our lucky star. Moreover, we also have our informers, remember?
Are you referring to those brats to whom you are always giving charity?
Exactly, my secret police. Some of them must surely roam in this area. It suffices to find them. Hello, young man. How are you?
I recognize him. It's the lad who sells newspapers, who is always calling outside our windows at Baker Street, early in the morning.
Hello, Mr. Holmes. It's a treat to see you again. What can I do?
Would you happen to know an old sailor who goes by the name of the Captain? A poor man who hits the bottle a bit hard.
Of course, Mr. Holmes. He's there at the end of the street. Round to the left he is. But be careful. He can be a tough customer, that one.
Very good, my young man. The doctor will give you a little something. Watson?
Huh? I say, Holmes?
Is he always such a skinflint with you, Mr. Holmes? Well, thanks to you, Mr. Holmes. Anytime you need me.
Batty Street.
I can hear someone coughing more than is natural, Holmes.
Yes, Watson. The poor man cannot be too far away. If, in order to listen to us, this man imposes as condition that we find his pet cockroach, there will be another murder in Whitechapel today, Watson. Yours.
Ah. He is in a critical state, Holmes. He has barely a month left.
Is there a way, dear doctor, to ensure that this last month passes in silence?
Really, Holmes, sometimes you... Oh, really? I will make note of some medicine to get immediately that will relieve his pain.
Very well. I will locate an apothecary or a clinic.
Find the medicine, Holmes. We must make haste.
This building is a clinic.
Good day, sir. Dr. Gibbons. You aren't from around these parts?
Indeed, Doctor. It is for someone from your neighbourhood that I am here, though. His doctor asked that I acquire some medicine on his behalf. I have the note here.
Dr. Watson? Not from round here neither. This medication is quite dear. Certain documents are necessary to obtain them for free.
I don't have it. You'll have to accept my spare change. Will it be enough?
Enough to relieve your patient for a month. Would you like me to make this prescription available after that time?
According to Dr. Watson, that won't be necessary.
The possibility of a recovery?
A definitive one, yes.
There, sir.
Thank you. It's rather quiet here.
An unusual chain of events. The majority of the people hereabouts went out last night to see the great fire at the warehouse. The patients that I was minding and my staff were no exception.
The former were dramatically healed, and the latter ended up sick. And with the murder last night, most of the people who weren't working wandered over to the scene of the crime. Their little aches and pains will wait until tonight or tomorrow.
A squalid murder, it would seem.
Just like what this area has become.
My thanks, Doctor.
Not at all.
Here is the medication, Watson. Is our man movable?
He should be able to stand in a few minutes and will no longer be suffering from his cough before long.
Consider the affair resolved. Accompany him to his niece's while I return to the boarding house, and then join me at the police station. Let's return to the boarding house. I have good news for you, Mr. Finley. We have sent a captain to stay with a relative, and he shouldn't bother you for a while.
I also have some good news. I have your police bag.
Thank you. I bid you good day.
Oh, it was nothing. Tell me, one of my wife's friends lost...
Another day, Finley. Another day. Let's go to the police station.
So, what news do you have, Mr. Holmes? So, what news do you have, Mr. Holmes?
Are you sure it's the police bag that you lost?
Yes, but someone attempted to force it open. They didn't succeed, but now the lock is stuck. Perhaps you could...
Let's see. All done.
A big thank you, Mr. Holmes.
Think nothing of it, my friend. So, the reports.
Why don't you wait till the inspectors get back? You would certainly learn more.
If I wanted to meet the inspectors, I would have done so. So, give me the preliminary reports, and above all, do not mention my visit to anyone. Is that clear?
Sure, if that's what you want. Here are the reports.
Thank you.
Have you obtained the preliminary reports?
Yes, we'll read them on the go. Let's to the scene of the crime at Bucks Rome, Watson.
But what are all these people doing here, Holmes?
Apparently, they came to see the scene of the crime.
What about us? Aren't we going to see it?
We will return this evening, Watson. The circumstances shall be ideal for carrying out our little experiments. Well, Watson, we are at the scene of the Polly Nichols murder. Imagine the victim lying at the spot where she was found and try to discern all of the clues we can. Watson, you are a writer. I am therefore entrusting you with our deduction board. It will help us to establish certain facts.
Understood, Holmes.
The body was lying on its back, legs straight and slightly apart. The skirt had been lifted up to the middle of the body. The left hand was touching the barn door. The body was still warm. Let's reread the preliminary report for the details on the wounds inflicted upon this poor woman. No marks on the ground. The ground is muddy. There is a black bonnet near the left hand. No signs of blood. Let's look at this poor woman more closely. A small pool of blood, 6 inches in diameter. The throat was slit from left to right. There are 2 incisions. The tongue is swollen. There is a bruise at the level of the right maxilla. There is a bruise on the left cheek. There is only one streetlight lit on this street, Watson, and this spot is particularly poorly lit.
This spot is deserted, Holmes. The prostitutes only come here to exercise.
Well, Watson, we have found all of the possible clues, I think. We will now attempt to recreate the scene of the murder. Come closer, Watson. I have to make you up.
You are joking, Holmes? I feel ridiculous, Holmes.
Now, Watson, come and stand here in front of me. You shall play the role of the poor woman and I shall play that of the murderer. Let's try to reconstruct the facts to ensure the final result corresponds indisputably to the way that Polly Nichols was killed. Sorry, Watson. No, the victim wasn't already lying down on the ground before dying. Yes, it's quite possible the events occurred like this. No, had the victim had her throat slit while standing, there would naturally be blood on the walls. No, had the victim had her throat slit while standing, there would naturally be blood on the walls. I hope that, as with the real murder, nobody had to witness all of that, Watson. If the murderer used his right hand astride his victim, there wasn't much room. The murderer had enough room to inflict the wounds to the neck, and these wounds suggest the left hand was used. My dear Watson, now that we have found all of our clues, nothing remains but to subject them to our most likely hypotheses in order to deduce the facts. The victim was most probably dead before being laid down. Once the heart stopped, gravity drained the body slowly, not in a heavy spurt that would have stained half the street.
Thank you, Holmes. I understand why you told me not to change clothes. Do you realize that our behavior didn't alarm anyone?
The victim's ordeal was even more discreet. By acting in silence, we have confirmed something. The crime definitely took place here. The victim and her murderer were able to come here without making any noise, and afterwards the murder took place without the slightest cry being uttered. Come, Watson, let's go home. We have spent far too long in this sinister alley. And so, my dear Watson, the day and night which we passed in Whitechapel were enlightening, weren't they?
An adventure that I most certainly will never relate. To be in the skin of that poor woman. I prefer not to speak of it further. But have we really learned anything about the murderer? Obviously a man, given the necessary strength.
We have little to go on, at least no more than the police. But in my opinion, Inspector Aberline has a trick or two up his sleeve. No, I want to talk about the facts and what we can draw from them. We know where the crime was committed and under what conditions. I would like to ask you about the possible motives for the crime. According to you, Watson, what could have pushed the murderer to act in such a way?
Revenge, Holmes?
Revenge could be a possible motive, but with one small reservation. We have reason to believe that the victim considered her murderer to be a typical client.
A personal drama.
Love can certainly lead to many a drama, but we have to consider the fact that the victim didn't know her attacker.
Theft, perhaps.
I have a hard time believing that someone would attack poor Polly so fiercely just to rob her of a few coins.
Homicidal insanity, Holmes.
It is indubitable that the man who did this to Polly Nichols is not of his full senses. Elementary. Very well, Watson. I think that we've exhausted the topic. Take a rest and we'll speak again later.
Ah, it would seem that the investigation is advancing, Holmes. Yesterday's Star said that a suspect is in the hands of the police, a man with a rather sinister reputation.
I was about to join you in your optimistic outlook until you informed me that the good news came from the press, Watson.
But surely they wouldn't invent the fact that the police are holding a suspect, or the acts that are attributed to him.
You will have an exact answer to these two questions in less than 50 seconds, Watson.
Pardon?
Enter, Inspector.
Good day.
Dear Watson, allow me to introduce Inspector Aberline, Inspector Dr. Watson.
Inspector?
To what do we owe the honour of your presence, Inspector?
I heard that the two of you made your way to Whitechapel a few days ago. Your arrival, you are aware, coincides with a very serious affair which our police service is going to great lengths to solve and which is creating strong tensions in the area.
Pardon me, but haven't you arrested someone? A certain Leather Apron?
Absolutely not. The man who hides behind this name is indeed being actively searched for by the force. Besides, nothing at the moment suggests that he is the Bucks Row murderer.
There, you've been enlightened, Watson. Now it is our turn to answer Inspector Aberline's questions.
Indeed. I will be brief and precise. Do you intend to investigate this case, or have you already started?
It is to be of service to a friend that I went to Whitechapel. We did, out of curiosity, familiarise ourselves with the preliminary reports, and we made our way to the scene of the crime. Our conclusions are slim, as are the clues. Having not been officially appointed by a client, I believe that my intervention in this business will end there.
Very well. To be frank, You take the weight off my shoulders by distancing yourself from the case. Our image isn't very good, to say nothing of what the press puts us through. Thus, if overnight they found out that you were on the case, people would turn against us.
And they would pester me, overwhelm me, and finally make me out to be responsible for the inevitable failure such a scenario entails. Neither you nor I wish for this to happen. I know that your time is precious, Inspector. I will send you a note regarding my conclusions shortly.
With pleasure. Gentlemen?
Do you think that he will find the murderer?
The chances are slim to non-existent. It is 7 days now, short of a confession from the murderer himself.
And you will not go further?
You heard the Inspector, Watson. My presence in Whitechapel would hinder, which doesn't mean that we will drop the case.
How is that?
The Inspector spoke of me, but not of us. It is you, Watson, who will lead the investigation tonight. It is you who will bring to the police station the little note that I will write regarding our conclusions. Despite the late hour, there is nothing to stop you from making inquiries about this famous leather apron while you are there.
Well, if I follow Holmes's instructions, then to begin my investigation into this leather apron, I must first head to the police station.
Good evening, sir. What do you... I know you. You were here last week with Sherlock Holmes.
Indeed. I have come to bring a message from Sherlock Holmes for Inspector Aberline.
Very well, I will pass it on. But come to think of it, someone was asking about you recently. Finley, the caretaker of some shady boarding house nearby. Does that mean anything to you?
Ah, perhaps. Actually, I read in the Star that you have arrested a suspect called Leather Apron.
You shouldn't believe what you read in that rag, sir. The man is being hunted, but we have yet to get our hands on him, and we aren't close to it either.
Why ever not?
Bah, he's a specialist in the streetwalker racket. These girls make pitiful witnesses, and we don't inspire confidence. Furthermore, the man seems to be pretty discreet lately. Someone must be helping to hide him.
How to get on his trail, then?
One of these girls would have to confide in us and give a valid description of the man. Then we'd ask around the journeymen, who use aprons, I imagine.
Well, goodbye. I must go to Finley's boarding house. I must go to Finley's boarding house. Good evening, Finley.
Oh, good evening, sir. Aren't you the gentleman who was with the great detective the other time?
That is indeed me, Dr. Watson. Tell me, Finley, I was told that you were looking for us at the police station.
Indeed, I wanted to thank you for last time, you know. That vagrant has never set foot round mine again. I even found a tenant, one who pays his rent, I mean.
You don't seem very happy, but you were lucky to have found a good tenant so quickly.
It's just that this man is very strange. He paid several days in advance and I gave him a key to the place. Since then, he goes out every night and returns at ungodly hours. I'm sure he goes to visit the ladies, but still, every night. And when he moved in, Something must have broken in his case and stank up the stairs in his room for 2 days. I think it was a jar. It must be over there.
Tell me, have you heard talk of Leather Apron?
By the papers, that's all. This man seems very sinister.
Do you know any journeymen who use this type of apron?
The slaughterhouse butchers, I believe, but definitely the cobblers. I know one, old Isaac Solomonovich. His workshop is on a small street in the Jewish community, across from the hospital. He's a good man. He can help you. But you know, the people there are very close and don't share much with non-Jews.
Thank you, Finley.
At your service, sir.
Some news, Doctor?
Well, goodbye. This odour is very strong indeed, but the whole neighbourhood as such has a dreadful stench. Finley might have an idea as to what this jar that contained.
What do you want, Doctor?
You're right, the pieces of the jar that your tenant broke do give off a strange smell.
It's true. That's quite normal given his trade.
Yes, and what would the trade be of your strange tenant?
A doctor, like yourself, I believe. Dr. Tumblety, a foreigner. Canadian, perhaps.
Dr. Tumblety. It might be interesting to know more about him. Thank you, Finley.
At your service, sir.
The night is cool. What a horrible summer we have had. Does the name Tumblety mean anything to you?
Not at all. But if you like, I can make inquiries.
Fine, why not? One never knows. Well, goodbye.
Oh, it's you. I'm coming. Dr. Watson, how are you?
Well, and yourself? And how's your uncle?
Oh, he sleeps a lot, but he doesn't seem to be suffering. Your medicine has worked wonders. Thank you again.
It was the least I could do. I have come to see you about a certain Leather Apron. Have you heard of him?
Oh, yes, of course. Terrible things are said about that man.
Have you ever come across him?
Goodness gracious, no. But I know that he has threatened and taken many girls in my situation. I don't know what more I can say, but Bella would be able to tell you some.
Who is Bella?
Bella Pullman. She's the landlady of the place where I could take you there if you like.
Please do.
It's me. It's Lucy. This gentleman would like to speak to Bella. It's the doctor who helped me. I must leave to return to my uncle. Thanks again.
Can I get a refill, please?
If you'd be patient, Madam Bella will arrive in a moment.
Good evening. I am Dr. Watson. It is young Lucy who told me to come see you.
Ah, so you're the Good Samaritan who saved her uncle without asking for anything in return. And now you've come to see me, no doubt, to explain that the poor little thing doesn't belong here and you will see to her future. Well, if you expect me to let her leave with you...
It's not that, ma'am. You should know I am a married man.
And why should that matter?
I believe there has been a misunderstanding. The reason that Lucy sent me here is that you may be able to give me some information about Leather Apron.
Are you a doctor or a constable?
I am most certainly a doctor, but I am acting in this matter in a private capacity, and I would like to find this man.
Well, if you're able to rid us of him, I'll give you a week's worth of free passes. That man is a thorn in our sides. He spies on the girls in the streets and watches them inside the houses, spying through the windows. And as soon as they're finished with a client, he jumps on them without any warning and forces them to give him their money. I've never seen him, but one of my girls was attacked by this man, and she said that he wore a leather apron and carried a knife. And his face, oh, he has a horrible head, with rat's eyes and a deformed mouth. She even said that she knew his name, Pizer, I think. But I don't know where she can be found. Margie, Nutcracker, the girl I'm talking about, could tell you more, but I had to let her go last week.
Why did you let Margie go?
The poor girl caught a shameful sickness, and the symptoms have attacked her face, if you know what I mean. So I gave her notice, and a little bit to help her along. I don't know where she is now, but she'll certainly be getting treatment at the clinic if she's still in the neighbourhood.
Did you speak to the police?
What would they do? Who cares about the girls in the streets?
Would you have received a visit from another doctor, a stranger by the name of Tumblety?
I'm just like you, Doctor. Sworn to secrecy in my profession. But as I've taken a fancy to you, I can tell you that this name is not unknown to me. And if you do me a little favour, it is possible I might remember something about him.
What kind of favour must I do for you?
You see that man over there? He's a rich artist, a painter, a regular client round here. Well, yesterday, he came and left his cane in the umbrella stand in the hall before going into one of the rooms. Well, when he returned to this room, the cane had disappeared. It's a cane with a massive silver knob. Must be worth a fortune. He threatened to call the police unless he got free services in my establishment for a year. I'll be forced to accept, unwillingly, of course, given the services that he's demanding, unless the cane is found.
Did you question the residents regarding the theft?
They didn't see anything, and there's not one of them that would risk stealing from a client here.
Who was in the room when your weasel of a client was in the chambers?
There were a few that came and went, but Mary could tell you better than I can, because she was the one at the counter yesterday.
Thank you, ma'am.
No problem, my angel.
Can I get a refill, please?
These paintings are suggestive, at the very least. 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 Good evening, sir.
Good evening, my dear man. I was led to believe that you're a doctor.
None of the residents of this establishment are among my patients, sir.
Oh, you're not here as a doctor, but as a man, then. I understand. This is my kind of place, too. It's in these houses in Whitechapel that you find the girls that are the most natural and definitely the most docile.
Your way of speaking about these women is not that of a gentleman, sir. I heard that you were the victim of a robbery here.
Oh, I'm not complaining. The loss of that walking stick will certainly bring me a very pleasant compensation.
What does your cane look like?
The stick is ebony, about 35 inches long. The round knob is made from chiseled silver with a ring around the middle of the same workmanship, just like the tip, for that matter. If you find it, don't tell a soul. Keep it for yourself. Got it?
Well, goodbye, sir.
Goodbye, or until next time. And good evening.
Very cool. There you go. Can I get a refill, please? Brandy, sir? Oh, look again. Oh, where are you?
What happened to this rug?
Oh, it's when we got a coal yesterday. I asked the young man to fill the pail. He came back to put it down, but his feet were covered in soot and he made a black print. Madam Bella said it was my fault and I got a shilling's penalty. I also have to clean the print and it's no picnic. He has immense feet, that boy.
I heard that there was a theft yesterday. Did you see anything?
No, and I was here the whole time.
Who delivers the coal?
It's never the same person. I've never seen that lad before.
Do you always keep an eye on the coat stand?
Oh, yes. Well, when the coal delivery came, a client came out of the chambers and stopped me from seeing the boy who brought the bucket of coal. You don't think he would have taken advantage?
Until next time, miss.
With pleasure, sir.
Can I get a refill, please?
Good evening, Doctor. My name is Dr. Watson. Pleased to meet you.
Good evening. I am Dr. Gibbons. Likewise.
I have come to see you about one of your patients. Margie goes by the nickname Nutcracker, who gets her prescription from the clinic. She's a lady of the night and is afflicted with a venereal disease.
I know who you're talking about. Indeed, Margie has syphilis and is being treated with mercury.
Do you have her address?
No. And for your information, she left London for good 3 days ago. She felt threatened.
Margie felt threatened? But by whom?
I believe that Margie was particularly scared of a terrifying man who attacked her once.
Did she say the name Pizer or Pyther?
Unfortunately, she didn't give a name, but she described a man with shifty, rat-like eyes and a mouth twisted in a sinister grimace.
Did Margie have any idea where this man who terrified her so much might be found?
No, but she told me that another girl who'd been attacked like her had told her that this man worked in a cobbler's run by an old Israeli. Also, she saw him again last week, the night of the big fire. She told of going to see the fire like most everyone else in the area. While there, she recognised her attacker in the crowds gathered at the warehouses. There was no mistaking a face like that, she said. She kept an eye on the man the whole time the firemen were working in order to avoid him.
Goodbye, Dr. Gibbons.
Until we meet again, my dear colleague.
A large black footprint.
What can I do for you, my dear colleague?
Pardon me, Doctor, but who made the large black footprints there near the beds?
The brother of one of my patients. The poor thing had a leg amputated after colliding with a carriage. We arranged to find her a prosthesis.
Prostheses are very expensive. How did this man pay?
He told me that one of his uncles gave him a walking stick with a chiselled silver knob. I agreed to accept this knob in exchange for a simple prosthesis with harness. But this object is of great value, and I could finance half a dozen other prostheses by selling it on Petticoat Lane.
Doctor, I have reason to believe that the silver knob that you possess is from a cane that was stolen by the man who brought it to you, and I believe I know to whom it belongs.
That's what I was worried about. The story of the uncle seemed a little strange. Nevertheless, you must have proof of what you claim. I will show you all of the knobs that we have here. If you find the knob that the young man gave me, I will believe you.
So be it, but something is bothering me. I will need a complete cane, not just a knob.
Don't worry, dear chap, build one. I can loan you some tools. Make use of the odds and ends in my cupboard. It'll help get rid of it.
Well, I shall try. I will have to remember the description that Sickert gave. Goodbye, Dr. Gibbons.
Until we meet again, my dear colleague.
There, all done. Holmes couldn't have done better himself.
What can I do for you, my dear colleague?
I believe I found the knob from the stolen cane, which I succeeded in putting back together.
That's the one. And yet I cannot give it to you, Doctor. I will only return it to the police, and only if there is an official complaint against me.
Would there be a way to convince you to give me the cane?
Find me a dozen solid adjustable harnesses for wooden leg prostheses, and it's yours, Doctor.
Goodbye, Dr. Gibbons.
Until we meet again, my dear colleague.
This interview with the doctor revealed an important fact. Leather Apron could not be the Bucks Row murderer. According to Margie, the villain passed most of the night of the crime at the fire. He could not have been at the scene of the murder at the moment it was committed. He is nonetheless a dangerous character. A cobbler's shop. there's nobody here. How very odd. I say, these things look like harnesses. Oh my, they are noisy. Good evening, sir. Pardon the interruption. The door was open. I didn't think that I would find anyone working at this hour.
Good evening, sir. I didn't hear you come in.
Say, those things that made noise, they are really harnesses, aren't they?
Yes, horse harnesses. But I must tell you, sir, that the store is normally closed at this hour. That is why I've asked you to return tomorrow.
I didn't come about my shoes. I came to speak of a cobbler, perhaps one of your former employees? A man with very particular habits.
You aren't with the police by any chance? I'm sorry, but I do not want to speak of anything but shoes with you.
I am not a policeman. I am Dr. Watson. It's Mr. Finley, who told me that you might be in a position to inform me.
Ah, that Mr. Finley is a very brave man. And if he sent you, then you must certainly be a worthy man also. So, Doctor, who is this cobbler with strange habits?
The man of whom I speak is called Pizer or Pyther, a man with a frightening face. Do you know him?
Yes, John Pizer. He worked here for a while, but he is no longer here.
Do you know where I can find him?
No, and if you look, you will not find him.
Why?
Because he is in hiding, Doctor. You see, a week ago, a horrible murder took place in the neighborhood. A rumor circulated that he might have been responsible for this crime. They say he has quarreled with women of certain virtue in the past, if you understand me.
Isaac, it is about the Bucks Row case that I have come to see you. I have the certitude and an incontestable witness that Pizer is innocent, at least of this crime, although he has attacked a number of street women. If he doesn't come forward to explain himself to the authorities, he is condemned to hiding and to take the fall for this murder. Furthermore, it will cast suspicions on your community because they must be hiding him. And while the whole police force is hunting for him, they cannot concentrate on the real assassin who roams the streets and, one never knows, may take any one of you any day.
If what you say is true, your visit is a godsend to our community, Doctor. I tell you something. I know Sergeant Thick, an honest policeman who lives in the area. I'll tell John's family that he must go there to explain himself. But if you could please go as soon as possible to the police to give them this report that you say is incontestable.
I will go as soon as I take leave of you.
Thank you. If I can ever be of service in any way, do not hesitate to ask.
Could we transform your horse harnesses into harnesses for wooden legs? Adjustable harnesses?
A good craftsman can do anything, Doctor. And I do believe that's what I am. Come back in a while and it will be done. That will be my thanks for what you have done.
I shall return later.
At your convenience, sir.
I am spent. I would like to return home, but I promised to go to the police as soon as I could. Now then, let's go to the police station.
Will you?
Yes.
Hey, Doctor, you seem tired. Were you wandering the darker parts of Whitechapel all night?
You could say that. I have some information on Leather Apron, the man of whom we spoke earlier.
Do you know where he is?
No, but I can clear him of the Bucks Row crime. A witness proved him totally innocent.
Oh, Watson, Watson, is it only now, after many hours of walking, that you decide to pass on the important message that Inspector Aberline is waiting for?
But, no. But what are you doing here, Holmes?
I was worried, Watson, and with good reason it would appear. Go give the message to this policeman and let's go home. Nobody appreciates me hanging around here, you know, and it's freezing cold.
Ah, Creddle, none too soon. You will take the testimony of this.
No, you continue with your duty shift. I must find Chandler in Ambury Street. He's struck again.
Who?
The murderer, the Bucks Row assassin.
Hanbury Street. Let's go, Watson. We have no time to lose. Hanbury Street. Let's go, Watson. We have no time to lose. It was very good of PC Chandler to let us pass. He said no one has touched the corpse. It's the perfect opportunity for us to put our skills to the test. Watson, let's not waste it. This fence separates the courtyard from the neighbours, 27 Hanbury Street. So, Doctor, shall we examine our victim?
Ah, I'm tired, Holmes. I'm not sure if I am in a state to do this work.
Come, Watson, there is little time. Show me what you're made of.
Oh, my God.
Pray, Watson, pull yourself together. Can you establish the time of the crime?
The extremities of the corpse are cold and rigor mortis is beginning to set in. I would say that the murder was committed over 2 hours ago, before 4:30 a.m.
The blood is a dozen inches or so from the ground. Bloodstains on the wall. Bloodstains on the wall. Looky here. It would seem he has a mark on his left hand. Two combs, curiously arranged. A piece of coarse muslin. There are no trails on the ground. There's no sign of a struggle. Now, let's look at the stomach, or at least what remains of it.
It's dreadful, Holmes. Who could do that to someone?
That's what you're here for, Watson. Tell me what this man has done.
The stomach has been entirely opened and... Oh, my God! A number of organs have been removed.
So, you're telling me that the organs were removed, Watson. They weren't ripped out.
Not at all, Holmes. On the contrary, this is clearly the work of an expert. I couldn't have done any better myself. And the uterus is missing.
Looky here. It would seem he has a mark on his left hand. The victim must have worn a large ring or several little ones, and someone pulled them off forcefully. This detail will be very valuable, Watson. You can be sure of that. Let's look at this poor woman more closely. Look at her neck. What can you tell me?
There are 2 incisions.
A bruise. The tongue is swollen. The victim's face appears to have bruising, wouldn't you say?
Under the maxilla and cheek. There is less on the right side.
A torn envelope. It smells of rubbing alcohol. It contains 3 pills. I will take one. 2 should suffice for the police. My dear Watson, now that we have found all of our clues, nothing remains but to subject them to our most likely hypotheses in order to deduce the facts. I hear a noise coming from the street, Watson. The authorities are arriving. It's time for us to go.
Holmes has been locked away in his room for days, always saying the same things. I'm thinking, Watson. Very good, Watson. As you wish, Watson. But I am thinking too, so much so that I can't sleep. Annie Chapman. Good Lord. Holmes examined the broken jar that belonged to Finley's tenant. I wonder what this substance is. I don't recognize the odor.
Formalin, Watson. This jar contained formalin. Interesting, don't you think? I've been waiting for something for days. Just the tiniest bit of news that would make sense of this whole matter. But there's nothing, neither from the press nor the police. Unless Inspector Aberline is holding on to some information without realizing its importance, which is quite possible. It is time for you to return to the police station in Whitechapel, Watson. And didn't you tell me that you had a matter to take care of it? Take advantage of it to learn more about this pill and its contents.
Ah, but Holmes, it's late, and spending another night in this district is hardly my idea of entertainment.
I know, Doctor, but we don't have any choice. Time is against us. Take your pistol in case you run into any troublesome characters.
Fine, as you wish, Holmes. Good evening, Mr. Solomonovich.
Good evening, Doctor. What a pleasure to see you again.
Have you finished converting the harnesses?
Yes, just now. I got a little behind because of all the commotion.
Commotion?
Don't you start. 3 days ago, the very afternoon that you passed by, there was a chase throughout the neighborhood. Hundreds of people were chasing one man, claiming he was responsible for the murders these last few days. Schmonz! It was awful. I hope those maniacs didn't catch him. Better the police should.
Tell me, did John Pizer turn himself in to the police?
Things unfolded as they should. Look in the newspaper, the Daily News from today.
Farewell, Isaac.
Goodbye, Doctor.
Good evening, Dr. Gibbons.
Dr. Watson.
Did you keep the cane we spoke of last time?
I was going to sell it tomorrow, would you believe, having not heard word.
Here are your harnesses, Doctor.
They are top quality, I'd say. Definitely worth the price of this walking stick. Here, it's yours.
Do you have any formalin here?
No, definitely not. They have it in university hospitals to conserve anatomical specimens in jars. But in a little clinic like mine, we don't keep anything but bad memories.
Well, farewell, Doctor.
Goodbye.
I must go to Miss Bella's.
Yes, Doctor?
Could you tell me what type of pill this is?
Yes, we have those here. It's not really a medication. We give them to patients with chronic respiratory conditions like tuberculosis.
Did you have a patient by the name of Annie Chapman, the woman killed 3 days ago?
Indeed. She came in the morning of her death. Poor woman.
Did you give her these pills?
Yes, now that I think of it. She actually came in twice. The first time I gave her an almost empty container without making her pay. She came back during the day and said she dropped the container and stepped on the pills. She wanted to know if I could give her more again without paying. I refused. After she left, a patient who was there told me that he lives at the same place and confided that she had been lying. He saw the pills fall in the tenement's communal kitchen, but the woman immediately wrapped them up in a piece of paper.
Where did this paper come from?
According to this man, she'd found it near the chimney in the kitchen.
Anyone could have thrown that paper there. That envelope can't have anything to do with the murder.
Pardon, Doctor?
Nothing. I was just talking to myself. Well, farewell, Doctor.
Goodbye, Dr. Watson.
I must go to Miss Bella's.
Can I get a refill, please?
Good evening, ma'am. Your door was open. Isn't that a little dangerous?
Hello, Doctor. Don't worry if the looks of anyone who enters doesn't please me. Me and my pistol know how to convince them to leave.
Do you happen to know Annie Chapman, the poor woman who was killed 3 days ago?
Dark Annie? Like all the drifters in the area, I've seen her once or twice. With respect to the dead, Annie really was the bottom of the barrel.
What do you mean?
Well, in our profession, the pretty young ones go out when night has barely fallen and don't have a problem finding takers. But poor girls like Annie or Polly Nichols, who aren't as tender and are often sick, sometimes trudge around for a whole night in the cold and the rain before landing a client. And that doesn't help their appearances either. They don't have much choice about paying for a bed for a few hours, a glass of gin or a hot meal.
How terribly sad.
That's the price of survival in Whitechapel, my angel. One of my girls knew Annie for some time. They bought some jewellery on the black market, I think.
Jewellery? How could Annie Chapman have possibly afforded jewellery?
Luxuries for a woman are always relative to her condition, Doctor. As a matter of fact, it was real cheap junk. Annie got 3 assorted brass rings, I think. It's been said I have a memory for jewellery.
How is Lucy keeping?
She's doing well, Doctor, but believe me, it won't last. Rare are the girls who can build a future in our profession.
Very well, I shall let you get back to work, Ma.
See you soon, my love. You're still there, Doctor?
Can I get a refill, please?
I found the cane that was stolen from your client. Here it is.
Doctor, you are a real saint, I can see that. I'll finally be able to present my bill to this damned painter. If by chance you see him, tell him that a little surprise awaits him here.
You told me you would give me some information on this Dr. Tumblety.
Agreed. He's a Canadian or an American. He parades from time to time through the neighbourhood in a 50-guinea suit and acts like a doctor. But for business, he isn't worth it. This damn Yankee hates women. The few times that he was approached by the girls, he spit on them, all the while hurling insults. It would seem that he was hunting for the bad boys. He's looking for trouble, that animal.
Does he frequent any pub in particular?
Aye, the Wasp's Nest on Burner Street, I think. A seedy spot even by our standards.
Very well, I shall let you get back to work, Ma.
See you soon, my love.
The Wasp's Nest. This pub looks even more disreputable than the Golden Lion in Baker Street.
Hey, you can't go in there. It's private. Got it?
Greetings, my good man. Could I have a pint?
Here, Gov.
I've been told that Dr. Tumblety might be found around here. Is that so?
I don't do a roll call of all the drunkards here. I've got my hands full just making sure I get their money.
Don't people pay when they order?
Nah, look at that little scribbler there. Completely dead drunk. Tonight's tally is about as long as his arm. If he skips out, I'll be in for a guinea almost.
What's behind that locked door over there? Can I go in?
Not likely. And let me be unless you're wanting a drink. Got it?
Goodbye, my friend.
Oi, that's it.
Good evening, sir.
Well, I know you. Why, we met at Miss Poolman's the other day. So you've come to slum it in Whitechapel, eh?
Do you know Dr. Tumblety, a Canadian or American chap? Quite an extravagant dresser. Frequents this pub now and then.
Are you intimate?
No. What do you mean by that?
Oh, nothing. Nothing at all. I just wanted to prove my discretion concerning this man, in so much and so far as I know him. You wouldn't like it if one day the tables were turned and everyone was talking about why you were in the borough. Isn't that so?
As it happens, I saw Miss Pullman recently. She told me that she couldn't wait to see you again. She said something about a surprise that is waiting for you at her establishment.
Why, that is some of the best news I've heard, my friend. As thanks, I would like to let you in on a secret. The man that you were talking about, and whom I happen to know by sight, passed by and went through that little door that you see over there. Another man let him in. They weren't together for more than a few minutes, to be sure, eh?
Well, I will... But what is this person trying to imply? This matter is beyond me. Good evening, sir.
It'll be the coup of my career, Governor said. Ha! You'll make loads of doss of the paper, he said.
You're a journalist?
That's so. Tom Bulling at your service. The Whitechapel ferret, the wizard with the scoop.
You don't...
You're mistaken. Whiskey passes through the blood and turns into ink. Simple. You see?
Don't you think you should settle your tab and go home?
My red ink? Where's my...
Very well. Good evening. I hope I'm not disturbing you.
Not at all, Doctor. This man, Mr. Richardson, is a witness to the horrid affair at 29 Hanbury Street, the murder of Annie Chapman. We are discussing the relevance of his testimony.
You're probably not in a position to discuss it with me, but I would like to know more about what you call the relevance of this young man's testimony.
Oh, there's no secrecy. It's simply that the testimony given by Mr. Richardson doesn't match the time of death given by the coroner, Dr. Phillips.
What was the time of death, according to him?
Before 4:30 in the morning.
My conclusions were the same. Were there any other conflicting testimonies?
Well, 2 other witnesses summoned at the preliminary inquest gave testimony, but in these cases too, the times don't match.
Do you remember what it was they said?
I didn't question them myself. A colleague of mine took down their statements on paper, but on deciding they were of little use, he tore them up and threw them in the bin. There's no point in being bogged down with useless paperwork.
I will take my leave, Humphreys.
Goodbye, Doctor.
May I introduce myself? I'm Dr.
You wouldn't be the chap...
Well, yes.
Go!
It would seem you're...
Let me tell you, I'm a bit befuddled about the times that I told them. But it can't...
What did you see, or what didn't you see? And at what time, would you say?
I'll tell you this for nothing. It was cool. If there was...
This is the sink where the barmaid puts the glasses to soak. Look, red ink. What's that doing here? The bottle is closed. There must still be some ink inside, and it looks like a glass. The barmaid must have put ink into the sink by mistake.
Right. Do I get in your way? Me?
If you'll excuse me, sir.
You're the best. The boss told me.
I found your red ink, my friend. You should settle up and head home.
Thank you, my friend, thank you. The spring-heeled phantom will be revived.
Gov?
Here you go. It's on the journalist, my friend.
I owe you one. The next...
Nothing, thanks. But I may need your help. Listen, my friend. I would like you to let me in the door over there. Absolutely not, my friend.
Fine. I owe you this at least. There's a bloke behind that door there. No pity Bluto. Let's just say he wants to lay low for a moment. So I don't think he'll be opening the door just now. Unless... Tell him you have word from Squibby. That'll open the door. But who can say what'll happen when the door closes?
Goodbye, my friend.
Oi.
There is a strong smell of gas. It seems to be coming from the abandoned building. Good evening, Finley. How are you?
Oh, good evening, Doctor. So. And you?
It smells of gas here.
You might say, Doctor. Without wanting to speak ill of the force, I have to wonder if the police are up to something.
What do you mean?
Well, I was outside yesterday evening when the light went out at my place, and a gas smell came from the abandoned building across from my place. And a minute later, the police arrived and were snooping all around like it was them who hit the gas before arriving.
Have things sorted themselves out with your strange tenant?
Don't talk about it, Doctor. That man is truly bizarre. He goes to the most sordid locations once night falls. 3 days ago, my wife told me she saw him come in with blood-stained clothes and a fearsome look.
Interesting. What does he look like, and how old is he?
Oh, he's my age, give or take, so the other side of 50. He's always dressed in a striking manner with an American hat. He's big, close to 5'11", I'd say. He has a strange voice, not just his accent, see, his voice.
Very well. Goodbye for now, Finley.
Goodbye, Doctor.
Now then, let's go to the police station.
Yes, Doctor?
So, how far along are the investigations into these two recent murders?
Everyone around here believes both crimes were committed by the same man. But as for the Hanbury Street and Bucks Row crimes, nobody has heard or seen a thing.
By the way, have you heard of a Dr. Tumblety?
No. Is it important?
Yes. Well, no, maybe. Actually, I don't know. I have heard about this man, his frequent nocturnal outings and bizarre behaviour.
What does this chap look like, Doctor? And where can we find him?
The last I heard was that he was staying at Finley's place, the man who was looking for me a few days ago.
It would greatly assist us if you could ask Finley what your strange associate looks like. We could then see if the description matches any witness accounts.
Tumblety is a man around 5'11", about 55 years old, extravagantly dressed and with a rather distinctive voice. He boards at Finley's. You should know where that is, as the police were there only yesterday. Their arrival coincided with a strange gas leak.
Ah, yes, I know where you mean. Indeed, there was an odd affair with the gas. It was rather unsettling. We were searching for a well-known scoundrel who was ratted out by Squibby, the chap we followed and saved from the pack a few days ago. This thug, no pity Bluto, must have been in the abandoned building in question. But there was no sign of him when we arrived. Furthermore, an inspector said that, given the smell, the thingamabob that supplies gas to the building was probably damaged. So we took no risks and were called away somewhere else.
I will take my leave, Humphreys.
Goodbye, Doctor.
This police station is like a laundry. What a scandal. Here are the ripped statements. I can piece them together again. There, all done. Holmes couldn't have done better himself. An old report on arrests that took place a few years earlier.
Yes, Doctor.
I will take my leave.
Good.
I have no reason to go that way. I could return to Baker Street, but I am still missing some information, and that would put Holmes in a devil of a mood. Let me in. I have news from Squibby. But stay calm.
And who are you? Where's Squibby? He's out.
To be honest, I don't actually know this Squibby chap. I was actually wondering if you knew Dr. Tumblety, a Canadian or American fellow. He came in...
Sure we know him.
Excellent. Can you...
You know about gas?
I'm afraid not. I am a doctor.
Then I ain't interested. You can be leaving now. But if I find out who snitched to the peelers, I'll find you. Got it?
But I can pay you for...
Keep your coins for the paupers, or one of the gas boys who ain't afraid of nothing and knows how to hold his tongue. You bring him to me. I'll meet with you.
Well, it would seem that I have all the information I need for my investigation. Anyway, this fellow Bluto at the Wasp's Nest is rather shady and doesn't look like he'll want to cooperate. I'd be better off returning to Baker Street. Holmes will certainly know what to do. And besides, I am worn out. Let's go back to Baker Street. Home, sweet home. There we are, Holmes. I've told you in great detail everything that happened last night.
Excellent work, Watson. We shall now be prepared to answer a few questions about the horrible murder in Hanbury Street.
Do you think we are now in a position to find out the identity of the murderer of these two women?
No, I don't think so. It's outside of our scope and not our responsibility. As much as you've done for Leather Apron and the affair with the pills, our mission is to help the police by ensuring that they don't get caught up following false leads and to point them in the right direction. Let us start from what we know with some certitude. As you have just said, it is almost certain that the same person killed the Bucks Row and Hanbury Street victims. The reason to assume as much are numerous, and I shan't elaborate here. What do these two victims have in common?
Apparently nothing, Holmes.
Are you feeling all right, Watson? Come on, are you quite sure these two women had nothing in common?
Perhaps they both knew someone in common.
Quite literally, you're right, the killer. But that doesn't tell us much. Had these two women had an acquaintance in common, the police investigation would most certainly have found out about it. And yet it didn't.
It's true these two women were in the same profession, but...
Indeed, Watson, these two women were both prostitutes. That is of vital importance, Watson.
My memory from your examination of the scene is rather hazy. Didn't you say something about the killer's frame of mind?
I was talking about the victim's possessions that were placed on the ground and the rings missing from Annie Chapman's fingers. This killer is a cunning predator, comes from a rather humble background and shows steely self-control in carrying out the murders.
Something is puzzling me, Holmes. Richardson's testimony contradicts the time of death given by Dr. Phillips, which also matches my own, 4:30 a.m.
And yes, we shall confirm that, Watson, and attempt to determine the precise time of death. In order to do that, we will need to place everyone involved on a timeline. Only after that will we be able to place the knife symbolizing our killer. Let's look at our timeline, Watson. Let's put the time of death as assessed by Dr. Phillips on the timeline. The assessment of the time of the murder given by Dr. Phillips and yourself, Watson, 4:30 a.m. Now, for the most important part, the testimony of Miss Long. She claims to have seen a woman speaking to a man near 29 Hanbury Street sometime around... What time, Watson? Let us assume, therefore, that Miss Long's testimony is, as is most certainly the case, true. She places her meeting with the victim at around 5:30, claiming to have heard a clock chime on the half hour at the moment when she enters the street. Now, let's put the Richardsons' arrival and departure times on the timeline. Now, let's put the Richardsons' arrival and departure times on the timeline. Despite the great respect I have for Dr. Phillips and the value I place on our friendship, my deepest conviction is that both of you are mistaken and that Richardson is in the right and that these 2 testimonies put down in writing have real worth.
But how? Explain yourself, Holmes.
Remember how you assessed the time of death? You touched the fingers and body of the victim, but it was remarkably cold for this time of year. In addition, the corpse had been drained of bodily fluids. Its heat retention was therefore no longer the same as that of an intact corpse.
Egad! You're right, Holmes.
Oh, I've had some time to research, Watson.
Given these facts, my first diagnosis may have been off by half an hour, perhaps even an hour.
Thus, we can confirm Richardson's statement and establish that the murder was committed after 4:50 a.m. and not before 4:30 a.m. Our next witness is Albert Kadosh. Albert Kadosh goes down into his garden at approximately 5:20 and on re-entering his home hears voices in number 29's garden. Let's place this symbol that represents Kadosh on the timeline. Kadosh goes back down into his garden approximately 4 minutes after having left it and hears the sound of an impact against the wooden fence. Let's place this symbol that represents Kadosh on the timeline. Kadosh leaves the garden, enters his house, then leaves for work, seeing the clock on the Spitalfields church showing 5:32. We left the station at 6 o'clock and it took us 20 minutes to arrive at Hanbury Street. Our arrival at the scene occurred at around 6:20. Given the distance separating the 2 locations, we can deduce that the corpse wasn't discovered after 6 o'clock and therefore that the murder must have been committed before. Excellent, Watson. All our people are now in place.
Yes, but Holmes, Miss Long claims to have seen the victim at around 5:30. But according to Kadosh, someone, most certainly the victim and her murderer, was already in the garden at 5:30.
Excellent observation, Watson. It must be noted, however, that these 2 witnesses, Long and Kadosh, saw the time shown on the clocks in the area, which are often inaccurate and went by their empirical and, in this case, erroneous estimate of how much time had passed. Thus, neither of these 2 times can be considered reliable.
Do you mean to say that these 2 testimonies might match?
Indeed. Let's put Miss Long's meeting with the victim at 2 minutes before 5:30. Let's add Miss Long's meeting with the victim at 2 minutes before 5:30 a.m. Mr. Kadosh claims to have passed by the Spitalfields church at 5:32, which, given the distance from 27 Hanbury Street, would mean he was still at home at 5:31. Let's therefore put the end of his testimony at 5:31. Miss Long heard the man say to the victim, "Will you?" To which the victim responded, "Yes," which would suggest that an agreement was reached and that the transaction was imminent. They then proceeded to enter the garden, which puts the voices heard by Kadosh at 5:29. We had thought that Kadosh had left 27 Hanbury Street at 5:31 after having heard an impact against the fence. Thus, 2 minutes passed between the moment when Kadosh entered the house after having been in the garden the first time and the moment when he returns to go out again and leave for work. How long did he estimate this interval to be? 3 to 4 minutes. In light of all this, Watson, we can finally establish the time of Chapman's murder. Now, place the knife at the exact time. Now then, taking into account that the local clock isn't exact and that a young man was off by a minute or two in his estimations of his comings and goings, we can confirm Miss Long's testimony and place the time of the crime at approximately 5:30.
But in that case, Holmes, the man that Miss Long saw is none other than...
That's right, Watson. It was the Whitechapel killer.
To think that Miss Long and Kadosh were only a few feet away from him.
Indeed, Watson. Had Miss Long passed just a little closer to the victim and her assassin, or had the young Kadosh popped his head over the fence out of curiosity, the killer would most certainly already be behind bars.
That's some stroke of luck he had there.
I couldn't agree more, Watson. But his luck didn't end there, given the mutilations inflicted upon this poor woman. What must be considered above all is the killer's obvious wish to remove one and only one specific organ. His surgery pinpointed the exact spot, avoiding superfluous incisions. This suggests the man possesses at least a minimal anatomical knowledge.
Are you suggesting a doctor or a butcher?
Perhaps, but the possibilities are still too broad to conclude with any certainty. Now for the motive. Despite my almost complete lack of practical experience on the subject, I have a rather precise idea of the usefulness of a uterus and a vagina. Nonetheless, once they are separated from their usual envelope, I am more circumspect as to the uses one can make of them. What do you think, Watson? We need a board, Watson.
Perhaps it was intended as a study specimen.
I have little faith in that theory. Hardly anything was taken from the Bucks Row victim.
Black magic?
Watson, this line of investigation is far too vague. We don't have a single clue in support of such a motive. We can eliminate this hypothesis.
Holmes, what if it was cannibalism?
Even if the idea is unbearable, we can't ignore it as a possibility.
A desire for some sort of morbid trophy.
I'd be inclined to dismiss this motive. If this were the case, why would nothing have been removed from the Bucks Row victim? Elementary. What emerges from these possible motives for having removed the uterus from the second victim is that they imply that the killer could have carried out the same thing on the Bucks Row victim, yet didn't. This brings us to a terrible conclusion. Our killer has evolved in the space of only a few days, and if that's the case, had he already struck before the first murder to which we attribute him? And if the killer strikes again, what atrocity awaits his next victim?
We have to stop him, Holmes.
We shall do our best. This recent business of jars filled with formalin and of the American doctor might be a lead. Watson, inquire among medical circles to ascertain if there is a black market for human organs. The chances are slim, but this must be pursued.
Very well. What about you, Holmes?
I will send word to Inspector Aberline regarding our recent conclusions. I should also like to become a gas man and pay a visit to Pluto at the Wasp's Nest.
Understood, Holmes. I think one of my old university colleagues who works at the London hospital will be able to help me. I shall write him a note at once. He should be able to see me during the day. Afterwards, shall we meet here?
Yes, Watson. See you later, and good luck.
I must get to the London hospital, where my old university colleague works. To the London hospital, quick! My colleague agreed to meet me here in one of the London hospital rooms reserved for students.
Ah, John, you're there already. Punctual as always. Tell me, you don't seem to be in good shape. Is it possible that your recent marriage is making you this morose?
Ah, you know me well, Andrew. No, it's a strange and terrible affair that concerns me. Have you read my note?
Yes, I admit that I was surprised. It just so happens that I, too, was asking questions about our morgue.
What do you think? Have you heard of any organ trafficking within?
No, John. No doubt there exists some exchange between colleagues. Not quite legal, of course, but nothing that can qualify as trafficking. Since the Anatomy Act of 1832, which permitted the use of unclaimed corpses for science, the black market trade was definitely halted. There are sufficient subjects available for all practitioners and students. Of this I can confirm.
Well, organ trafficking as a lucrative trade is out of the question. Then what is troubling you with the morgue?
You are talking about trafficking organs, but I suspect there is trade in whole bodies.
What do you mean to say? Whole bodies are disappearing?
Well, it's confidential, but I know of your discretion and your friendship with the famous Sherlock Holmes. I can tell you that a few corpses have recently disappeared from the hospital morgue. Cadavers that were intended for dissection. That is to say, not claimed. Poor, unknown people. If a single corpse had disappeared, it might have been a bad joke. There are many students who pass through here. It's even a meeting spot. For the majority, they are here to work. A few come here in secret to practice. It also happens that instruments or organs go missing. Nothing alarming, but so many corpses. It's very troubling.
But the hospital doctors aren't doing anything?
No. That is to say, they would prefer not to call the police at this point. An investigation would no doubt result in the suspension of authorizations for the use of unclaimed corpses. Do you think that you could intercede on our behalf with Sherlock Holmes to clear up this situation?
Which corpses are missing?
I don't know exactly, but I can make an exact list if you would like to wait here for a few minutes. Feel free to look around the room while you wait. It'll bring back memories.
Thank you, Andrew. It's here that students come to carry out their experiments. This surgical instrument resembles a screwdriver. How amusing. It might come in handy. I will return it later. This rag is full of grease. It certainly wasn't used for a dissection. Was someone doing some mechanical work here? This wheel won't roll despite all of the added grease. Curious, as Holmes would say. These wheeled trolleys are very handy for laying out surgical instruments. A message. I'll be... Why the devil was it hidden here? An old prescription. Poor child, so young, yet terminally ill. Strange, someone scrawled something. Part of it is in Latin. These are instructions, it would seem. The last lesson must have been about the human heart. And for a class of beginners, I expect, as this diagram is rather rudimentary. An encyclopedia of anatomy. The page on the human heart is dog-eared. Let's see. It's here that students come to carry out their experiments. There is a heart in this jar. Based on its colouring, it hasn't been there long, and it looks like the drawing on the board. This jar contains 2 lids with combination locks. Look, there was a bit of paper stuck between the 2 lids. Incredible! Someone has hidden a magnet in this heart. But to what end? Incredible! There is a magnet with a hook behind this pane of glass. I am in need of something. There, all done. Holmes couldn't have done better himself.